Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
This week at Safeway, shop the 10 for $10 produce sale. With the 10 for $10 produce sale, get items like large avocados, mangoes, green, red, orange, or yellow bell peppers, cucumbers, large lemons, or 16-ounce bags of Signature Farms baby-peeled carrots for the member price of just $1 each. Plus, select meats like Signature Farms 80% lean ground beef and Signature Select extra meaty pork loin back ribs are buy one, get one free this week. Hurry in before these deals are gone. Visit Safeway.com for more deals.
Yeah, hello and welcome back to The Nest. So close yet so far. That was a cracking game of football against the Bulldogs on Sunday, Drew Jones. And I don't know about you, despite the 7-point loss and the hollow feeling at the end of it, the positives far outweigh the negatives.
Yeah, the initial disappointment, Garby, I found hard to shake. But I guess when you take a step back and you assess the performance, how the side is placed right now and how the Bulldogs are placed, cracking game of football, with a bit of luck, we're 2-0. We'll take 1-1 for now, knowing that absolutely we can take it up with the best sides and still with some room to improve. So, good one for the neutrals, wasn't it?
Oh, just an awesome game of football. Game of the season so far, without a doubt. Only 2 rounds in, albeit, but that was a beauty. And I think it just underlined the fact that we are a contender, especially when we get some big guns back. Those big guns, obviously, Elliot Yeo, Luke Shuey, and Andrew Gaff. I mean, he's been absolutely anonymous so far. So we'll talk about Gaffy. We'll go through the games. We'll go through your votes, which are fantastic again. So we've got the Nest medal update, the 5-1 from the game, the rolling leaderboard as well. We'll look ahead to the massive clash with Port on Saturday night. What an enormous challenge that is. And then we'll answer some of your questions, which are fantastic. But let's start with the big issue right now for mine amid the West Coast Eagles, and that is the mysterious case of Andrew Gaff. What has happened? Because without Yo and Shuey right now, Drewy, the poor form of Gaffy is being shown up as an enormous issue for the West Coast Eagles, and I just can't get my head around a player who has been so consistent for so long being so far off his elite form. Yeah,
I'm really interested to know if we get any clarity this week on whether he has an injury or what the issue is, whether there's something in his personal life which is affecting him, but he's clearly off. Body language for Andrew is always hard to read because he is quite a reserved personality. But, just throughout his entire career has absolutely just been sick for the footy, like getting a lot of the ball, running all day, and, outrunning opponents, outwilling them to get to each contest, to make himself available for handballs, kicks all around the ground. But we haven't seen that. I think he had 3 or 4 possessions at halftime in round 1. Sorry, my dogs are fighting in the background. And against the Suns. And it was like, oh, that's very strange for Gaff. And he sort of worked himself into the contest. But again, he was outshone by almost every midfielder on the ground at Marvel Stadium on Sunday. He ends up with 16 possessions against the Dogs. It's about 10 less than his career average. So it's a fascinating situation. And when we really needed Gaff to be standing up and contributing, he hasn't been able to do it. And, he was even attending centre bounces, getting himself in a great position to win the ball, but just not able to do so. So, Garby, what are your thoughts about the theories that perhaps he's adjusting to the new style of footy? Perhaps it's moving a little too fast for him, or he's not getting himself into the right positions to get all the handball received and the chip kicks that he normally is.
No, I'm not buying it. I'm not, because, Andrew Gaff's never been quick, but he's always been a great endurance runner, and he's always been able to keep up with the pace of the game because he's so damn fit, and he's not slow either. There's been moments in games the first 2 weeks where it looks like he's running on quicksand. he just can't get going. There's times where he's chasing and you see him look down at his legs saying like, come on, give me something. I think there must be some issue there. There must be some injury that he's trying to play through and he's just struggling with. That's the only answer for me, because he just looks so far off it. And then late in games, you can almost see him saying to himself, you've done nothing today. You're not contributing. You're letting your team down. You've got to give them something. And he's fighting through and he's linking up a bit and he's getting his disposal count up. But there must be something up with his body. That's the only answer I can provide. I don't think it's the pace of the game. You don't fall away that much. It's not the pace of the game has gone up so many levels that a guy like Andrew Gaff goes from being, a top-level midfielder to someone who, let's be honest, on form, shouldn't be in the team. Like if he was a first-year player coming in, he'd probably be out. He's got lots of credit in the bank, of course, so they'll back him and hopefully he can get himself right. Unless he has an injury, that means he can't contribute. But right now on form, you're talking about taking him out. That's how far away he's fallen. So I think there has to be something up with his body that he's trying to play through and he's just struggling to do right now.
So this is a theory with no basis in any inside knowledge. Do you think it's possible that he is carrying something and because Shuey and Yo aren't playing, we're asking him to play through it, or he's volunteering to play through it?
I mean, who knows? Probably a bit of both. He's so experienced that the coach will trust him, of course, but you dare say there's some discussions behind the scenes at the moment as to where he's at. Can we afford to go into the game against Port without him? On form, we probably have to, because at the moment he's not getting near it, right? So if there's no signs that he's going to get back to his best if he is battling an injury, then they probably have to leave him out of the side this week. If it's just form, then obviously you back him in. I'm not sure what you think about that.
I just don't know if we have the cattle available to replace him. Like we're struggling enough for one, an extra wingman as it is. If he's still playing his role and Port Adelaide still have to respect the fact that it's Andrew Gaff and if he's still running his 15 Ks a game, then maybe you just have to keep playing him and sort of say, relief is going to come in the next few weeks. I mean, there's a slim chance that Luke Shuey might play this week. So West Coast were optimistic about his hamstring not being too bad. Whether they want to risk him is another thing. So it's a pretty delicate situation. One thing is for sure, Garby, Andrew Gaff has been one of the most consistent AFL midfielders in the entire competition for the last 7 or 8 years, if not longer. So there is something up, but this is not some weird anomaly. Like he's 10 possessions below his career average, and realistically, if you take out all the sub-vest appearances early in his career average is probably closer to 28 or 30. So to have 16 and 16, he clearly looks off, but there has to be something more to it. Carlton went through a couple of weeks of denying that Patrick Cripps was injured, and then eventually they've admitted now that he's carrying an injury, and that's why his form has been a little bit down. There's no shame in it. There's no shame to be injured, and there's no shame to be brave and to play through it. He's doing it for the team because we don't have the depth in the midfield area. So let's hope, A, he's able to get out of this little slump or recover from this injury, or B, we do the right thing by Gaff, which is potentially, rest him.
We want it to be an injury. I mean, the worst case is that it's not an injury and he's fallen off the cliff dramatically. And therefore, you don't see much chance of it. There's less chance of him getting back to his best. If it's an injury, he can recover and get back to being the quality midfielder that we know he is. But at the moment, it's hurting the team. And we can transition now into the game. You come up against the best midfield in the competition, bar none, with like 7 to 8 elite A-grade runners. It is so hard to keep up with them, especially with Shuey and Yo out of the sides. You take Gaff out, basically, and it's just, they're going to overpower you at the end of the game. I said it before in a previous episode. They remind me so much of the Eagles of 05-06, where the forward line's fine, but it's not incredible. The back line is good, but for the Dogs, maybe the forward line's better than their back line. But the midfield is just so strong that they just overpower you late in games. And even when we got 3 goals up, I'm like, we've played a taxing game plan. We played a bit of a counter-attacking game plan where we flooded to try and halt their midfield, and then we hit them the other way. It's really effective, but it's going to hurt us late. man, 05-06 Eagles, what happened? Judd or Cousins or Kerr or Embley or Braun or one of them just got the run on and overpowered you. And I could see it happening, and it did happen in the end. And you just can't afford to be a midfielder down in that case. And it's a similar story against Port this week. So that's basically the way the game transpired in the end for me. We played so well. We were just up against a team that have too many powerful runners, and they will do that to a lot of sides this season.
Yep, a lot of weapons for the Dogs. And I think perhaps slightly different to previous years, it feels like maybe they're just gelling together a little better. Someone commented that a couple of the players are handballing a lot more than previously. They're making the effort to get it into the hands of Bontempelli to use his kicking skills, to use Caleb Daniels' kicking skills off half-back. So, yeah, the Dogs are doing a lot right. I think they certainly show that they're a contender and someone that we might have to play down the track. Will be hopefully better prepared in terms of our midfield mix when that time comes, because I think we do have them covered at both ends. Like we showed, Kennedy got off the leash on Sunday, but it could have easily been Darling or Allen, who both took contested marks throughout the game. And then down back, for the most part, we had their measure. It was just purely the amount of ball that was coming their way. The Dogs dominated possession, which meant it was a taxing day for our defenders. I don't know if you remember towards the end, Tom Barrass had a contest where I think he at least won it or sort of split it on the half-back line, and then the ball bounced back to him almost straight away, and he was absolutely gassed. Like he could barely move. He picked it up, tried to just throw it on the boot. Then he got smothered. He had to keep putting efforts in and in and in. And Barrass played really well, but he was under siege with those midfielders just streaming forward and repeat entries when they got it locked in their front half. So, yeah, we did well to take our opportunities, but it's going to be, more of the same if we can't sort out the midfield mix.
Our forward line's looking really strong, though. I mean, JK, where's this come from? That sounds silly because he's an all-time great, but he didn't have much of a pre-season. There's been recent years where we've heard JK's had a full pre-season, and he hasn't started the campaign as well as he started this one. I mean, he is just looking unbelievable right now, which is making our forward line so dynamic. Jermaine Jones, hey, we called it, Drewy, didn't we? We pushed the barrow. He gets in. Hard to believe he didn't play round one. Look at the difference he's making. What I like about him is he's got some anger about him. I mean, you look at Petch sometimes and he sort of floats through games, and there's reports that he wasn't putting in much in the Waffle game on the weekend after being dropped. That's disappointing to hear. And you look at Jones, he's got some real mongrel about him. He gives away a free kick early, but I didn't mind it because it showed how angry he was at the contest and how fired up he was when he kicks goals. I really like him in the team. And we fought really well. The defense is looking good. The game plan, everyone stuck to it. They knew it. They played it well. And then up forward, you got Kennedy, Darling, who started the season superbly as well. And then Cripps and Jones, who are doing a really good job at ground level. We're looking solid. We're looking like a really solid football team at the moment. It's such an encouraging start amid such a difficult draw to begin the campaign.
Yeah, I thought Jones was one of the big pluses for us that we can take away from the game. Showed he can contribute in the forward 50. We didn't get too much of a look at him in the midfield, which is what we saw from Jones a little bit in the pre-season. I wonder if they do look to roll him through there a little bit more once he's settled, at the level and in the team. But he looks like he's got plenty to contribute when he's around the ball, and then got himself into good positions in the forward 50 to finish off our work. So, yeah, he was a big plus. I think Dom Sheed, again, in the 30s with possessions. I heard a stat that he got 10 of our, 35 clearances, and Nick Nat got the other 12. Sheed has been required to do a lot of extra work in the midfield so far this season, and he seems to have stepped up to the plate. So that's great to see him playing good footy and getting plenty of the ball, sort of covering for a little bit for the guys we're missing, and Gaff's lack of production at the moment. I thought Tim Kelly again was superb. What we can say at least is it wasn't just a sunny afternoon at Optus Stadium where he produced a great game. He did it against a really good team away from home. Another really good performance, Silky with the ball and getting to a lot of contests. So I think it'd be fair to say that you were spot on the money, Garby, when you tipped a bounce back from Tim Kelly. he looks a class above at the moment, and is only going to benefit from the return of Yo and Shuey and that hardness around the contest. One guy I wanted to single out, Garby, as far as a positive goes, was Josh Rotham. I thought he was really good on Sunday. I didn't have him, I don't think, in my best 22 to start the year, just being squeezed out by Witherden. But, I'm not sure that we can leave him out at the moment. He's playing really great footy. He's brave, skills are good, plays above his height at times when he needs to. So been really impressed by Rotham. And just quickly, you mentioned Cripps before as well, Garby. Do we lose the game if Cripps had have kicked that goal from the goal square?
Yeah, maybe we do. So, I think his all-round game has been really good the first 2 weeks, but that's a mistake. He needs to kick those. He just has to. That's part of his job. It's part of his remit. So that was frustrating. His kicking for goal hasn't been great to start the season, but I really like his pressure and the amount of times he gets the ball and sends it forward and his decision-making. But, yeah, he needs to kick that. We have a 3-goal lead, I think, going into start of the fourth quarter. And that was a big moment, of course. So, yeah, he probably does. But there was also some free kicks, Drew, that went against us. We're not going to sit here whinging about free kicks. I don't think that's the reason we lost the game. But a few of those 50-50 ones went against us. Like Rotham, okay, he's holding the jumper. It's there, but, it's one of those ones where they can let it go sometimes. Gov gives one away late. That's a little ticky touchwood as well. A couple of those decisions went against us in crucial moments, I think.
Yeah, umpiring was interesting. It's almost hard for me to comment on it because I was surrounded by Bulldog supporters at the game and they were like incensed by the umpiring. They thought that they were getting a really, really rough deal. Whereas I thought generally the umpiring had been quite good. Probably the really tough one that went for us was the holding the ball in the goal square, which Cripps ends up missing, kicking into the man on the mark. That I thought was pretty harsh on the Dogs. But that deliberate out of bounds I thought was pretty tough against us. There are a few either way. There was a holding the ball. I think it was in the third quarter at half forward, which I thought was just stone dead holding the ball, which they got away with, and I think they got a goal out of, which I was pretty annoyed about. But yeah, ultimately it was a flip of the coin game. The 3-on-1 that Bailey Williams won for the Bulldogs on our half forward line. If the ball bounces differently, it might go to Ryan or Oscar Allen and we end up kicking a goal and going in front there. Instead, it goes the other way. The ball stays in for Josh Bruce rather than bouncing out of bounds, and then ultimately they get the winning goal. If that goes out of bounds and we win a clearance off the back of Nick Nat, then things potentially go a little bit differently. So, yeah, it was a line ball game the whole way through. We should mention Nick Nat Nui. He was awesome on Sunday. His tap work was brilliant. Let's not underestimate the fact that he's going up against Tim English and Steph Martin. Martin's there essentially to run into blokes and tire them out and, death by 1,000 cuts by the way that Steph plays, to then have a 205 centimetre guy in Tim English jumping all over you. It's a pretty big ruckload to carry against the Dogs these days. And Nick was, if anything, he got better as the game went on and he took marks around the ground. So he was awesome.
Yeah, he's just working his way into the season. So first round, I think he's just doesn't have the engine yet to contribute as much as he did on the weekend. And then he was up and going and just brilliant. And big game, big moments. He just lifts so well on all of those occasions. He was absolutely fantastic. So he's picked up from where he left off. So let's do our votes. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll do yours first, Drewy, then mine. Then we'll go through the collated votes of the listeners. Give the 5 to 1 for this week and an updated Nest medal. So kick us off, mate.
Yeah, so I went Nick Nat Nui 5. I thought, there were contributors across the board and you could have given it to a few, but I just thought he was so influential given what I just explained. 4 to Josh Kennedy, who, plucked some contested marks yesterday, kicked so accurately for goal. He was amazing. Then 3 to Tim Kelly, 2 to Tom Barrass, and I gave 1 to Josh Rotham for his game. But there was a lot of notable performances, that's for sure.
That there were. So I went 5 for JK. I just don't think we're in the game if he doesn't kick those goals. He kicked crucial goals from tight angles as well on so many occasions. So I think he gave us the best chance of winning the game, Josh Kennedy. Nick Nat 4, they were the two clear best for mine. I mean, he was sensational. So I think a lot of people went with those two options, JK and Nick Nat. So when Kennedy 5, Nick Nat 4, Sheed 3. So Sheed edged out Kelly for me. I actually thought Tim was down a little bit in the first half and then lifted a lot in the second. But against that midfield, without the two players that we know are out and without so many others, he was just so solid the whole way through against an A-grade brigade on the ball, Tom Sheed. So I thought he just kept us going. He was the engine. Tommy Barrass too. He's on all-Australian form pace, isn't he? I mean, the way he started is just fantastic. And then I gave the one to Jermaine Jones. I mean, he didn't have a lot of the ball, but those 3 goals were so important for us to keep us in the game and put us ahead at stages. So I thought Jermaine Jones was deserving of the one. So these are the collated votes after all of your votes, Nest listeners. Thanks so much for them. Plenty have been submitted. So we had 45 for JK, 37 for Barrass, 35 for Nick Nat, 16 for Kelly, and 10 for Sheed. That is with our votes included, which means JK gets the 5 this week. Tommy Barrass gets the 4, Nick Nat the 3, Kelly the 2, Sheed the 1. The updated Nest medal is Tim Kelly out on his own with 6 votes. Barrass, Kennedy, Oscar Allen all on 5. And then Hearn, Sheed, and Nick Natanui all on 3. So it's pretty tight at the moment. Tim Kelly the leader, but JK was your best on ground this week against the Dogs. Barrass with the 4, Nick Nat the 3, Kelly the 2, and the Sheed the 1. They're pretty intelligent, the Nest audience.
Yeah, well, they're agreeing mostly with us, so obviously they're of a higher echelon of intelligence. But no, thanks for everyone for contributing because we love the feedback from the listeners. Do you want to go through some of the points that have been brought up, Garby, via social media? Because there's a bit about the game and a bit about what we might do moving forward.
Okay, so let's go to the questions first, and then we can look at the Port game in a bit more detail. One of the questions being brought up by fans at the moment, which is a good one, is the role of Vardy, because he's not really contributing much at the moment. When you look at the sides that we're playing, you look at the Dogs, you look at Port this week, so many runners, so many pacey players. You wonder if we're better off, considering the way that Kennedy and Darling have started the season, Drewy, dropping Vardy, Nathan Vardy, playing Oscar Allen as the second ruck like he did last season, and bringing another runner into the team. It probably makes a bit of sense considering Vardy isn't doing much right now.
Yeah, it's such a hard one, isn't it? Like it's like having an all-rounder in Test cricket. And at the end of the day, you look at, say, Mitch Marsh, and he's bowled 12 overs, none for 23, and it doesn't look like he's done much, but he's bowled the dirty overs between 60 and 80 to give, Cummins and Hazelwood a rest before the new ball. And like sometimes that can make a massive difference. Even 15 or 20 good minutes or good competitive minutes from Vardy in the ruck, like how much is that helping, the trickle down effect of Nick Nat gets a rest, one of the forwards gets a rest, or Oscar Allen swings into the back line and McGovern gets 5 minutes to himself on the bench to recalibrate, or, Barrass gets a bit of time to switch off on the bench. So how much is that benefiting all those players, all that trickle down from having Vardy in the team? Is that worth it? Like our best players are getting an extra little rest or are getting a chop out on the bench. Is that better than having a runner in the team? Like how much is that extra player bringing? Are they good enough? Who is it for us right now?
Yeah.
Is it a player that's going to contribute significantly to the team? That's the trade-off that we have to make.
Yeah.
It just feels like we just need a little bit more from Vardy.
I think we do. The other argument is
one or two good plays.
Yeah. The other argument is the dynamic's actually pretty good. So we beat Gold Coast round 1, who are looking like a good team, who might be around the mark of the 8. And we almost beat a legitimate top 4 side. So the dynamic is working well, even though Vardy isn't contributing. Do you maybe go one more week with it? I mean, he is up against a dual ruck combo this week in Laddams and Lysette. If Lysette plays, I think he copped a bit of an injury last week, so not sure if he's going to be right. But, maybe there's one more week of it. But then again, you look at Port and how quick they are. That's the worry, right? They're just such a rapid side. They're going to enjoy that at Optus Stadium. They're confident there. I mean, it's a monumental test all up. it's going to be the number one issue they wrestle with at match committee.
Yeah, to me, it's a no-brainer. They've got to go 2 rucks again against 2 rucks. Like Lycett we saw the job that he did on Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy in consecutive weeks to help us win a flag. Like, he's a nullifying ruckman. Like, his number one job is going to be stop Nick Nat from sticking it down people's throats. And so if we can get Nick Nat rest when Lycett's out of the ruck, get him fresher for those contests and let Vardy handle Laddams, like, I think that's important. And it's early days in the season. We don't want to get to round 18 and burn Nick Nat out and he gets an injury and we lose him for the key part of the year. I understand there's a lot of feedback about this. I'm firmly in the camp of keeping Nick fresh. You know, it's a hard game to play right now. It's high paced, less rotations, longer games. Like, the quarters are going 33, 34 minutes. I think for now we stick with Vardy. That's my opinion. I understand the debate about it though.
Good questions from Steve and Michael on Twitter about Jared Brander. So apparently he's been killing it in waffle practice matches as an inside mid. So both of them have raised the prospect of Brander coming in as an inside mid, and then from Steve's point of view, maybe even giving us a chop out in the ruck. I'm not sure about that yet. I think he's got a lot to prove. There's such a big step up between waffle practice matches and AFL footy, of course. And obviously Brander hasn't done a lot to convince the match committee, which is why they've said, all right, prove it to us, at the lower level. And he started well. So look, maybe he's someone they consider for this week. It's great that he's brought the right attitude into those games and he's giving us another option. I can't see it yet as a big-bodied mid in the AFL because that's an area of his game that I think has been lacking, just the physicality so far. But maybe he's upped the standard in that sense. Where do you think it sits for Jared Brander after his start at the lower level, Drewy?
I would do it now if he's playing well, because if Shuey can't play and we know Yo's still a little ways away, this is his opportunity. Like, he's never going to have a better chance to play in the ones as an inside, ball-winning midfielder than right now. So you take away those centre bounces that Gaff has been attending, you then take them away from him. So you roll back Duggan's attendances a little bit as well, because if you're going to do it, you've got to do it properly. So if we've committed to Brander as an inside midfielder for this season, then you can't bring him in and throw him around, sometime on the wing, sometime up forward. Like it's not fair to Brander. And at this point, we want to see him succeed. Like, it's been a little slower and it hasn't worked out quite the way we'd like, but let's give him every opportunity to actually do it. So yeah, if there's an opportunity to get him in and play him in that position, then I say do it and do it now. Strike while the iron's hot. But
assuming Gaff is okay, so assuming they say, Gaffy, you're going to work through this, he's not dropped or rested because of the injury, who goes out? So who goes out of the team? I mean, the only option is Vardy then for someone like Brander, and you play obviously a tall down, which may be a smart way to play against Port, who I think will try and run us off the park. I think that's going to be their tactic. So maybe that's the way. Outside of that, purely on form, assuming they're happy with the dynamic, who goes out?
I guess it would have to be Xavier O'Neill.
I like the way he's going about it. I don't think we can afford to drop him considering the amount of runners that Port have got, the way he started, and our deficiencies personnel-wise in midfield at the moment. I don't think we can afford to do it. I think his attack on the ball has been really good too. Even if he's not getting big numbers, he's tackling and that's been really strong. I think that'd be so harsh on him.
No, I agree that he's doing well. It just, if you want a different type of player, that would be the option. Like, Brander's going to be, at least he's a bigger body around the ball. If you're worried about Ollie Wines and Travis Boak and young Willem Drew, who's not a big name, but he does have a hard head and a big body. If that's an area of concern, then Brander is a better option than O'Neill, because O'Neill's he's not splitting any packs open. So yeah, that would be the juggling act. But outside of that, I don't see what they can do unless that, Gaff is injured and they take him out of the team.
We'll see what they do. For me, the case isn't strong enough yet. So for me, It's simply if someone goes out, it's Vardy because of the dynamic and they want to change that up, and then maybe a Brander comes in.
Yeah.
I don't see us dropping anyone on form. I don't think anyone deserves to be out of the team apart from Andrew Gaff, but we've discussed that at length. He's got runs on the board, so that's purely whether the injury is proving too much for him right now. So that's the way I'd view it. The Port game on the whole, it's such a worrying game for me. Firstly, because Port is a legitimately top side. Like if I'm picking right now, today, a team to win the premiership, I'm probably going with them. Geelong, I think, can come home strong. Richmond will obviously be up there, but Port are looking the most dangerous right now. And you can guarantee it, they will try and exploit our big back line. So they only play really with Charlie Dixon as the big man. And then it's Fantasia and Robbie Gray and Zach Butters and Connor Rosey probably comes in this week. All of these guys, and I guarantee they're going to say, all right, Barras will go to Dixon. Then what do they do with McGovern? Right? Let's catch him in no man's land. Let's play all the quick guys around him, open things up, and he doesn't know where to go. They've done it to us before, and they keep the ball low, and they try and take McGovern out of the game, and it's going to be the tactic, and it's going to be a big challenge for us to deal with, and it's one I'm seriously worried about.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like does a Witherden come into the side as a medium-sized defender instead of having the extra tall, but then who do you consider? Who's our third tall back? Like who outside of Barras and McGovern, who actually counts?
Will Shepherd or Rotham play that role depending on who they're up against?
But I still think they're probably good enough on the ground anyway.
Yeah.
So, but Barras and McGovern are always going to play. I mean, Todd Marshall was a late withdrawal for them last week. So if Marshall comes back in, then that does give them each an opponent.
Georgiades might keep his spot.
Georgiades played really well. So, that between two out of those three are still going to keep them occupied. And to be honest, I'm backing Shepherd and Tom Cole and Rotham. I think they're all playing well right now to shut those guys down. Connor Rosey's coming in off foot surgery, so we don't know what he's going to produce as good of a young player that he is.
Yeah.
Butters played a lot of midfield time last week, had 36 touches. Fantasia is a worry, but, consistency hasn't been his strength over his career. Yes, he's in good form right now, but he hasn't had a Brad Shepherd playing on him the last 2 weeks. They've played Essendon and North Melbourne, who are going to get beaten up all season. So this isn't, as much as Port are a hype team right now, they haven't had a test like this so far this season. So this is going to be a different kettle of fish for them. But it's going to be interesting to see the way that we do structure up. We think back to that game a couple of years ago when they absolutely flogged us at Optus Stadium. And yes, they played very well that day, and they played. Their entries into the forward line certainly caught us out. I'm not sure they could have played that any better on that day, and I don't see them doing it that well again.
It was a wet weather day, so it suited them to play that style. I can't wait to watch Shep on Robbie Gray again. It's always the matchup, and Shep has beaten him numerous times when we've come up against Port. He always takes that player, of course, the most dangerous medium forward. Robbie Gray is still that player for Port, even though they've got so many other runners around there now. But I reckon Robbie Gray is just dreading this week. He's like, Shepherd again. He always gets me. He's so good. And Shep's going to be pumped up for this one because he knows he's got him in his pocket. So I can't wait to watch that matchup yet again.
Yeah. There's a lot of very good footballers that are going to be out on the field at Optus Stadium. So you say you're worried about this game, Garby. If anything, I'm excited for it. I don't think a loss is terminal for us, and I think we're good enough to win. So, I'm looking forward to the game, and I'm going into the game as I have done over the first couple of weeks, of the understanding that we're missing two pretty key players. We're missing our captain, who may play this week, and we're also missing arguably our best midfielder in Elliot Yeo, and certainly one of our most important players. So, our best footy is still ahead of us this season, and we're still playing pretty well. I think we've shown that, our way of playing still holds up despite the changes to the rules and the way that teams are playing. So, St Kilda looked a bit shell-shocked and undermanned on Saturday night. That might be an opportunity for us to get one back in round 4. So, I think we should all be optimistic and looking forward to the game.
Well, I've spoken about the concerns. Why can we win? We can win because our forward line is playing that well. So if our midfield can just find a way to break even while being undermanned, our defence can find a way to deal with Port's rapid entries and quick runners, which they've proven in the past they're good enough to do against any team because they're so experienced and so brilliant. Then we can win the game because JK is just flying at the minute. Darling started the season so well. It probably hasn't been discussed enough how well Jack Darling started the campaign. We know that Oscar Allen's in great nick. He was a bit quieter on the weekend, but still kicked a couple of crucial goals. And then Jones and Langdon and Cripps have all shown enough in the first 2 weeks. They'll be worried about our forward line. That'll be their big talking point. You know, these guys have got serious weapons. And if they do break even in that regard, we're up against it at home with the way in which they're moving at the minute, which is causing problems. So that's the reason why we can win. Our forward line is just playing at a really high level.
Well, if nothing else, Garby, at least we're forcing Alia to man up. And that's what teams haven't been able to do against them in the first 2 weeks and in the practice games. He's looked like the recruit of the year, the way that he's been intercepting and almost dominating games off their half-back line. But, you know, he's giving Alia a bit more to think about when there's Oscar Allen, Darling and JK because, you know, Tom Cleary, Tom Jonas, you know, they've still got a job to do. They haven't been playing McKenzie. So, you know, as far as their backline goes, you know, they have to be wary of us. It's, you know, their backline's been playing attacking football over the last fortnight, but that all changes on the weekend when they take on West Coast. They have to start looking after a man and looking after really dangerous opponents. So that brings things onto our level. And they probably haven't come up against a Nick Naitanui yet. If we start winning those set plays, those taps, you know, the way that we can clear the ball quickly and get it inside 50 to our big guys, they haven't had to go through anything like that so far this season. And that's, you know, a really massive strength of ours, clearly.
Well, it certainly is. So, you know, we can't wait for it. It's a tough start to the season, that we know, but, you know, we can win this one. If you look back and you say we nabbed one of the games against the Dogs or Port, we're in a really strong position. I think we're being viewed as a top 4 side now. Win this one, wow. It'll be, you know, that'll be an exclamation mark alongside that. So positive start to the season, another massive test amid a very difficult start to the campaign, but we've got big names coming back. We've got a massive player in Andrew Gaff that we need to get back in form. Everything else, though, is pretty much hunky-dory. So we're going through this contest really confident, and, you know, let's hope the home crowd just makes a huge impact on the game. Let's hope that they are vociferous. If you're listening to us and you're going to the game, make it intimidating for Port. You know, let's try and really create that intense atmosphere that can create a point of difference in what will be, you would think, a very tight game. So I can't wait for it, Drewy. Bring it on Saturday night.
Yeah, scream for your team. I had to put up with this Bulldogs fans on the weekend. So let's really make it loud. Enjoy the footy. Should be a cracker. Garby, thanks for your time on the Nest. Get on the Patreon and let's get the Eagles over the line 2-1.
Thank you all. Have a great week and fire up for the Eagles on Saturday night. Can't wait for it. Nowhere else you'd rather be than watching the boys or at the game. Give us your thoughts on Twitter, on the show, and any other points that we may have missed, and we'll continue to get to them. Loving your feedback, loving the start to the season. Let's hope we make it 2-1 against a big team on Saturday night.
This week at Safeway, shop the 10 for $10 produce sale. With the 10 for $10 produce sale, get items like large avocados, mangoes, green, red, orange, or yellow bell peppers, cucumbers, large lemons, or 16-ounce bags of Signature Farms baby peeled carrots for the member price of just $1 each. Plus, select meats like Signature Farms 80% lean ground beef and Signature Select extra meaty pork loin back ribs are buy one, get one free this week. Hurry in before these deals are gone. Visit Safeway.com for more deals.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.